Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, December 6th. I'm your host, Tom Moore. The game against Michigan is in 358 days. Today, you're going to be hearing from Ohio State head coach Ryan Day. We got a chance to talk to him on Wednesday. Got to talk a bunch of National Signing Day, but that's not what we're talking about on this show. In this one, you're just going to be hearing directly from Day about a bunch of questions about that Michigan game. What went wrong? How could it possibly have gone wrong? Where do you go from here? All that kind of stuff. Let's start with the one that I saw probably getting asked most about during the game, after the game, the days following the game. Everyone gets. You want to establish the run, especially in the Ohio State-Michigan game. Everyone gets that. But when that didn't work, was Ryan Day and the Ohio State coaching staff maybe slow to adjust?
I think the first thing is just overall, let me just quickly start with the defense. I feel like the defense played excellent. I thought that really from the Oregon game on, some of those adjustments that were made have been excellent. And I thought they played really, really hard in this game. Was everything perfect? No, but I thought they played really good. I think when you look at the offensive side of the ball, it was not a good day. It wasn't a good day across the board on offense. And, some of that had to do with the coaching and some of the game planning that went on. There's no question that, we could have done a better job getting the ball to the perimeter. I think one of the key points of the game, though, is when you have 5 trips to the red zone and you only get 10 points. And, in those moments there, we had a couple missed field goals, we had an interception, we had the field goal, and we had the touchdown. And, we hadn't done that up to that point. And that was a big deal. So, and then on special teams, we had some other things that, we wouldn't execute very well. A couple, kicks that weren't fielded great down on the 7-yard line, which created coming out situations. And then we had the 2 missed field goals. So ultimately, that comes back on me as the head coach, whether it's, the right guys being in the right spot, the recruiting part of it, the scheme, the coaching. So, that's on me. But I think when you look back on it, there's definitely ways that we could have got the ball to the perimeter. I think when you look at, I think we threw it 35 times in the game, which is, I think, Will's second most throws. But, that it certainly played into it being in the red zone and coming out. But there was definitely ways that we could have done a better job because it's the coach's job to put the guys in the best position to be successful. And that didn't always happen on Saturday.
As soon as that game ended on Saturday afternoon, and as soon as the fight ended, the view kind of changed to, okay, and now what for Ohio State? Because the and now what is very different now in the era of the 12-team playoff. There was no question that they were still going to be in the college football playoff, and that was all kind of reinforced on Tuesday night when the committee announced that the Buckeyes were currently slotted in as the 8th seed and were not only going to be in the field, but very likely have a home game. So 2 years ago, Ohio State had to sort of rally the troops. Ryan Day and the team had to sort of pull themselves up by their bootstraps after a loss to Michigan when they found out they were going to be playing Georgia. Worked out pretty well in that case. They didn't win, but that was very much a 60-minute game, not a disheartened Ohio State team by any means. So how do you do that again now?
Well, we got a lot in front of us. And as much as this hurts, we got a chance to go play for a national championship. And, when the dust settles, here we are. And we don't just turn around after a day and say, we're on to the next thing. That's not going to happen. But we've come in here, had some meetings. We're going to get out in the field today, move around a little bit. And so, it's almost like the NFL. You think about the teams who, are in the wild card, get that first win, and they can get some momentum going and win the whole thing. So that's all out in front of us. And we have plenty good enough players to go do that. So it's going to come down to the leaders, pulling everybody together, knowing that, we got some guys maybe going into the portal. We got a couple of things, but all those things are going to happen whether we lost or we won. So here we are, 10-2, frustrated with how the season ended, but everything's out in front of us. And so, we've had good conversations. I think the guys are moving in that direction. I know we want to know what the next target is, and we'll get that Sunday, but there's a good chance, we're going to be hosting here. And so I think that's exciting for our guys. And I know that, we'll rally around this thing and go after it.
This next one's one of the kind of questions I always like, where it's, okay, a take us behind the scenes kind of question. Ryan Day was asked, what are things like on the headset with him and Chip Kelly as they're sort of trying to figure out what they want to do during those fourth quarter drives?
Yeah, usually it's between each series, you get the script of what comes, for the next drive, some thoughts that are going on. And, some of them are mixed with RPOs and some of them are just, call it and run it. mixture of all those things. But when you do call an RPO, sometimes if they're, in a too high shell, that ball is going to get handed off. And then obviously you just have passes. And so, you go through it, you go through the list and see what you're thinking. And, there were a couple of them that, we got the turnover there in the red zone and weren't able to turn that. I mean, that was very, very frustrating, and that was a big part of the game right there. So, but that's typically how it goes.
There was a lot of blame to go around following that 13-10 loss to Michigan on Saturday, but one place a lot of people settled on pointing the finger was at kicker Jaden Fielding. He missed a pair of field goals inside 40 yards. Obviously not ideal in a game that you lose by 3 points. So where is Ohio State and Ryan Day with its faith in Jaden Fielding in the kicking game after those two misses?
Well, we wouldn't have put him in the game if we didn't feel confident in him. And, I know his teammates have told him the same thing. Everyone's got a job to do. And that's the game. And I have my job. Everyone has their own job. And so you got to do your job. And so, we'll continue to look at how he does in practice, but we wouldn't have put him in the game if we did not believe in him.
Another area where Ryan Day came under fire after that game was his usage of timeouts and when he chose to use his timeouts in the final few minutes of the game. Day really waited for the most part till after the 2-minute warning to call his timeouts. There is a separate school of thought that says you call them beforehand, kind of a little bit up in the air. So looking back with the benefit of hindsight, does Ryan Day feel like he handled that timeout usage correctly in the final couple minutes of the game?
Well, I think if you wait to the 2-minute warning, with 3 timeouts left and you still need a touchdown, that's plenty enough time to go down the field. And so, we try to do the best we can to get with, what's on the chart in terms of the analytics to get the feedback on what that should be. I think we had plenty of time to go score. We didn't do that. That wasn't the issue. But we'll always look at it to see where we are on the field, what's the down and distance, and then go from there. But ultimately what you're trying to do is, get the ball back with as many timeouts as possible and as much time on the clock as possible.
One play that was probably quite infuriating for a lot of fans in the final few minutes of that game was when the Buckeye defense got called for having 12 men on the field, handing Michigan a crucial first down right at the end of the game. Any more details on what happened there?
Yeah. I'm not going to get into all of it, but yeah, there was a miscommunication from up top, and once it got sent in, it was hard to it got loud and it got hard to get back off the field, and so it was a miscommunication. It shouldn't have happened.
The Buckeyes are not only in the college football playoff field comfortably, it also looks like they're going to get another home game. So what does that mean to this senior class? Obviously a very disappointed senior class right now, but what does it mean to them to potentially have another chance to end their home careers on a good note?
I think there's a mix of emotions there, but I do think as we get closer to finding out who we're playing, there'll be more and more excitement around that. But I think to know that their season isn't over and that the last time they played with each other isn't over and that they still can achieve the goal of winning a national championship certainly is right there. And they are. I think with every day they're getting more and more excited about that. But again, you don't just wake up and say, okay, on to the next thing. It just doesn't work that way. But we're getting there. And that's why we're getting on the field today, to get moving around and make sure everybody's together on this thing. And then, that you got to get that first win, in the playoffs. You got to get that first one. And then you just continue to build from there and grow. But I know the seniors are going to do a good job leading here the next couple of weeks.
You saw Ohio State running the ball, and particularly running the ball between the tackles more than you probably expected on Saturday. Was that the game plan? Was the game plan to attack the middle of the Michigan defense in the run game?
No. I mean, I think that there was definitely times where we did that, and that didn't turn out very well. But there's also other times we tried some other things as well. And I do think being in the red zone, coming out, certainly played into that. And some of those were part of RPOs. But there's no question that, the ball was run interiorly too much in the game. I think that's clear to see. Again, we did throw it, I think, 35 times. And, there were some plays to the outside. But, yeah, overall, just the percentage was too high of running the ball inside. It's clear.
Was Ryan Day more involved in calling plays on Saturday than he has been in most games this year?
I try to give my feedback and try to get involved the much I can on both sides. I click over on defense, I click over on offense, and try to do everything I can to help, to be a part of it. But yeah, ultimately, listen, I'm responsible. I'm the head coach, so that's where the buck stops.
one thing that may have limited Ohio State on offense is the idea that, well, maybe they were a little bit concerned about quarterback Will Howard after he threw that crucial early pick and then also took that big shot and had to leave the game for a little bit. Did the coaching staff maybe limit him and limit what they tried to do on offense based on that?
We go off of what the doctors say, and the doctors, felt like he was okay to go back into the game. And so in that moment, we have to trust that he is okay to do that. I think a little bit too was the interception coming out a little bit. And I think, you then are in a similar situation down there in a 5-yard line on 3rd and long. We didn't execute the run, but defense is playing good. Add to the punt, get it out of there, see if the defense can get a stop. But no, at the end of the day, we're going to just listen to the doctors and got to go off their advice.
It was not all bad news for Ohio State on offense on Saturday. The drive right before halftime where they went tempo, boom, 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 2-minute drill right down the field, touchdown. Their only touchdown of the game, though. So if tempo worked so well on the drive right before the half, why did we not see a lot more of it later in the game?
We had tempo plays going into the game. I thought early on, we kind of had a little bit of a pace to us, got into the red zone again and bogged down. At the end of the half, we were in a 2-minute drill because it was more of a 2-minute situation than it was just tempo. Looking back again, I don't think there's any way you could argue that tempo would have helped us more in the game.
We have talked over the years about the fact that the team that runs the ball always seems to win the Ohio State-Michigan game, and that has become a story to the point that Ryan Day has talked about the fact that the team that always runs the ball always seems to win the Ohio State-Michigan game. So after he talked about having to win the rushing battle to win the game, does that sort of play into Michigan's hands? Because it feels like Michigan is a team much more built to run the ball, and Ohio State is more built to pass. So if Ohio State's trying to run the ball to win the game, does that sort of play into Michigan's hands?
Well, I think there's two things there. I think we certainly threw the ball more than we passed it. Threw the ball more than we ran it. But I don't think that's your question. I think the question is, what we got to do what's best to win the game. Yeah. And that's got to be the number one goal. I think there's certain things that you have to do. And we have a list of like 10 situations. The rushing yards is one of them. Turnovers is one of them. X plays is one of them. You go through it. So you don't just get stuck on one thing. But when you see something that's like undefeated over 17 years, you got to make sure the guys understand that. That's important. But it doesn't necessarily mean like you got to do whatever you can to win the game. That's the bottom line. And so, there's other ways to run the ball. You can get the ball in the perimeter. You can, do different things, as you guys know. So, sometimes when you get down in there inside the red zone, it gets tight in there. You have to, be creative. And I think we could have been more creative in those areas.
And finally, here's another one that I think a lot of Ohio State fans have been asking since Saturday. This is the 4th year in a row where Ohio State is going to miss hitting on at least 2 of its major goals. They've only got 3 every season. Number 1, beat Michigan. Number 2, win the Big Ten. Number 3, win the national championship. Well, for the 4th year in a row, they did not beat Michigan. For the 4th year in a row, they are not going to win the Big Ten. Now that last one is still out there. They could still win the national championship. But when people are asking Ryan Day, why is he the right guy to get the team there if he hasn't been able to do it so far in the last few years?
I hear you. It's I can't sit here and tell you that, as I look back on the 4 years, if there's like one thing in common, you look at each game and you can identify different things that didn't go well. And ultimately the result's the result, And so our guys, first off, love Ohio State. They are completely bought in. I thought they played extremely hard in that game, and I thought they wanted to win that game more than anything else. And so I think the culture is strong as it's ever been. I think we have great players. I think we have great coaches. It was a bad day. And so now we have to go forward, and we got to, and the mindset is go win the whole thing now. And that's it. Like, we can't go back and start, second guessing things at this point. Certainly you can imagine how that's happened here in the last, few days, but we have to move forward. We have to focus on that. And, again, when you look at our type of guys, you look at the program, you look at, the way our guys compete, you look at, the way our guys develop, you look at, we won a lot of games. We're 10-2. Now, I know we didn't win this one in some key games, and that hurts. So we got to keep learning from it and growing from it and building on it. Every time you go through some of this, you learn more and more, and that has to be the case here.
Well, the regular season is over for the Buckeyes, but the postseason, well, that is just about to get started. It is conference championship game weekend. Going to be some really, really exciting and interesting football games happening Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday at noon. Find out who Ohio State's playing, where Ohio State's playing. Very likely the first home playoff game in Ohio State history. I know everyone's upset. That's going to be history. That's going to be exciting. That is just about 2 weeks away. Should be in potentially a 4-game run in the books, potentially, for the Buckeyes to make a run to the national championship. That is still very much a possibility. They are second in odds right now in terms of being able to win the national championship. So the season is not over, no matter what it might have felt like last Saturday afternoon. We will be there for every step of it at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team. Mark covering recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there as well to make you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.